Yo, what's up guys, and welcome to a brand new video over on the channel covering SoRare. So today what we're going to be doing is a bit of an introduction video to introduce you guys into SoRare, but what I thought I'd do is I'll try and use as many analogies to FIFA as possible. Now before we do start this video, I would like to say that this is not FIFA, okay? I'd like to say this game is 18 plus, so again, the last thing I want to do in this video is try and kidify something that's real life money and, quite serious in compared to a, PEGI 3 game. So before we do start the video, I will just say this game is 18 plus and it is real life money. Real life money is there to be made. Real life money is equally, if not more, for people who aren't doing research, in there to be lost. So before we do start the video, as much as I want to try and associate a FIFA because I understand its terms I understand, and, from you guys come from a FIFA base, hopefully terms you guys understand as well. It is not a kid's game, it is real life money. There is money to be lost. You've got to be doing your own research, and so on. So please do just look into it and just understand it is not a kid's game. But with that being said, what we're going to be doing is basically explaining what is SoRare, but using FIFA analogies. So basically, you're going to start up SoRare, and when you do start up, you do want to be signing up with an affiliate. This is not because we're filthy sellouts. This is because there is a general benefit from signing up with an affiliate. You get yourself one free limited card, which is a tradable card, once you buy 5 players from the open market, which we'll be talking about in a bit. So my affiliate's below if you want to use that. If not, just use someone else's because you're missing out on a benefit if you don't do that. So what you can do is you're going to sign up to the game, and it is going to ask you to pick a club you support. Okay, now don't pick the club you actually support. This is where the first FIFA analogy comes in. Now what it's going to give you is it's going to give you non-rare, untradeable players, right? Untradeable players. But the most important untradeable player is your goalkeeper. And that is because goalkeepers on SoRare are very, very expensive. So if you were to go into what we can maybe compare to as a online match, the goalkeeper is going to cost you the vast majority of your team. This is because in real life there aren't many goalkeepers that start, and as a result, goalkeepers are the most scarce compared to there's way more attackers that start. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to be picking PSG. This is because they have Donnarumma and Navas, and both are very, very good goalkeepers. Now, though you can't use these, you can't use untradeable cards in the weekend league as such. There is one more higher tier weekend league that you can use one non-rare, and that's when the goalkeeper is coming into place. So what you're going to be doing is picking PSG for the likes of Donnarumma and Keylor Navas, both very, very strong goalkeepers, especially Donnarumma's got years and years and years on him. So that's starting the game. You're going to sign up with an affiliate, and you're going to go and pick PSG. What there is a free game mode, okay? So when you go and play this, there is a free game mode, and it is called Casual. Now, the problem I have with this is I would then go and relate this to an online demo, right, or an offline demo. As in, you have the game, but you don't really have the game. What you have is you have something you can't really progress from. You could play it over and over again, but you're never going to progress. And the reason you're never going to progress from this is because there are 100,000 people trying to enter and only 3 prizes. This is the equivalent of EA going, yeah, you can go and play the demo, and 1 in every 100,000 will give the full game to. You just, and we won't even give you the full game. We'll give you a rubbish version of the full game. It's not realistic, right? You cannot play anything that makes any progress in this on this free mode. So what you have to do is you have to deposit money. This is the equivalent of EA going, well, you can't play Weekend League unless you load up 500 quid. That is generally the case. You can't play Weekend League, Squad Battles. You can't play any game mode of FIFA without loading up at least 300 to 500 quid, which is crazy. Now, they didn't dictate that. That's only dictated because of what people are willing to pay. It's the equivalent of, let's say there's an unhyped player in FIFA and they're 20k, and they get more and more and more hype, and they go up from 20 to 40 to 60 to 80, and then eventually get to 200k. Well, that's what's happened with the platform. So the platform used to be not as popular, and it's got more and more and more popular, and as it's got more and more popular, cards have become more and more expensive. So the minimum you have to pay to enter the weekend league or the online games has got more and more and more. Again, it used to probably be back in the day, probably about maybe a 5 or 10 quid, 20 quid. But now it's generally about 300 to 500 quid to enter the cheapest and the worst paying online game mode. So That's the first thing, is you can't actually play the online game mode without loading about £300 to £500. What you can do, on the other hand, is trade. You can do a lovely bit of trading. So, again, imagine you can't go into Weekend League unless you've got a team worth 700 quid, but you could load up 50 quid and trade your way up to 700 quid. That is an alternative. To talk about the market in FIFA, the main thing with this one is it's not quite like the market in FIFA. The market in FIFA has millions and millions and millions of players on it. So if I go and buy a card, I could literally go and sell them within 10 minutes. Why? Because there's millions of people playing it, and someone of that 1 million players is going to want to buy it. That isn't the case with SoRare. So if I am trading on SoRare, there is, I can show you right here, it's quite an interesting graph. There is 100,000 players. There we go. 100,000 players that have one paid card. So because there's 100,000 players that have one paid card, in theory there's 100,000 people looking to buy my card. Now that might sound like a lot, but when I'm talking about some random Korean guy that has very low demand, you got to think, what number of that 100,000 is going to be wanting to buy my random Korean guy? So that's what you got to understand, is in terms of the market movement, in terms of how fast you flip cards, how fast you can get a deal as such, it is way, way slower. It is, I guess, in argue, way less competitive. Although saying that, something that's just like FIFA, there are auto buyers in this. There's multiple auto buyers. Anyone who's been trading will be able to say there's about 4 or 5 very prominent auto buyers. And I've always wondered why they don't remove them. But apparently it's not even in their TOS that you can't run auto buyers, which is just crazy. But yeah, so in terms of the market movement, it's nowhere near as fast as FIFA, because FIFA's got, again, like a probably multiple million, whereas this has got 100,000 people maximum that are willing to go and buy something on the market. Now, talking about the market, there are 2 different markets on here. You've got the new card auctions and you've got the manager sales. Now, the new card auctions are very, very interesting. On this market, you do nothing but bid. There is no buy now, there is no offering. And why is there no buy nowing and offering? Because this market is SoRare's market, like the businesses, as if it's EA's market. Basically, EA go and list every single card for 150 coins, and you go and bid whatever you deem it's worth. That is the exact same with this market. Everything started, if we can go back here, at 54 euro, like cent. But what's happened is it's been bidded and bidded and bidded. Again, like EA would list a team of the year for 150 coins, and they get bidded and bidded and bidded. And whatever people deem right for the card is what they'll pay. So someone like a Daily Blin pulls in very, very good scores. He comes in at 400. Someone less so demanded, I don't know, a Dalibor Velimirovic, less so demanded, started again at the exact same thing, and he's been bidded and bidded and bidded. This market is, as I say, just fully, the only person who can list stuff is SoRare, which again would be the equivalent of EA. A very interesting thing is they actually also list up bundles. Bundles is where they list up 5 players, but they're collected as one auction, so you win 5 cards for winning them on bids. But there we go. We got the second market. So that's the first market, which is the new card market. And then if you click over here, it's the manager sales. The manager sales is you and me. They are these are all real life people. SoRare is the company themselves. So you got all these individual users. You got Bambone, you got Mika, you got Anjabra, you got Tanoj. These are all individual users. Again, it's like if I was going to list up a card on FIFA, they'd appear on this market, not this market. Which also comes down to, when you are listing a card, you can only list the card for a buy now. There's no bidding, there's no option of bidding, you list it for a buy now. But what is a comparison to quite the throwbacks of FIFA is you can send over trade offers. For example, Larry's Mobila. Let's say I didn't want to pay 29 euros. Well, there's no way of me buying him for less than 25 euros, there's no bidding. But what you can do is I can send over a little trade offer. So I can go, I don't fancy buying him for 29 euros, I'll go and pay 27 euros. And then what I'll do is I'll send over the 27 euros, and that'd be the amount I'd be willing to pay. I could alternatively go, if I can go and find it, alternatively I could go and send him a trade offer of some of my players. It's a little bit more awkward to get there, but that's another way. So if I was like, okay, you got this guy, I've got, I don't know, let's say I've got a Alexander Trent, it'd be an awful deal, and I'll go and offer him an Alexander Trent for him, rather than me having to worry about selling my player and then using the money to go and buy this guy. So they are the 2 markets. You've got the market, which is over here, which is where SoRare, the company, min list every player and they get bidded on whatever people deem it to. And you've got the manager, which is where we all list up cards and you list them at a buy now, nothing else, but they can get trade offered to. Very nice thing, there's no tax. In terms of selling players and buying players on here, no tax. So I could buy some for 29, sell them for 29, I get 29. The only difference is the Ethereum. Now this is where it gets really complicated and actually quite hard to compare it to FIFA. So when you're on this site, you're not actually trading with pounds, euros and dollars. You're trading with Ethereum. So Ethereum, if you guys are out the loop, is like basically Bitcoin. It's just one of these it's the second biggest cryptocurrency. So when you're actually listing a player, you're not actually listing for 29 euros. That's like a simplified way. What you're actually doing then is listing for 0.0107 Ethereum. Which, again, this gets very, very awkward because if Ethereum goes down in price, the price of the player you listed for them for goes down. So if you thought you listed for someone for 29 and Ethereum crashed, the site will automatically make him listed for 28, 27. So it's just something you have to bear in mind is when you're listing on the Ethereum price, not actually the price you want to sell it for. So it's something you've got to look into a little bit more and kind of learn a little bit more about. Obviously, I'm streaming, so you can ask me any questions, and I'm more than happy to go into depth. But it's quite a complicated matrix, but it's something you have to kind of understand when it comes down to trading. So something you will be more than happy to know exists is the equivalent of Footbin. Any avid FIFA player will know about Footbin. Basically, is a site that tells you what they go for, what they've been going for, and any data. Well, SoRare Data is the equivalent. It is an absolutely amazing site, and we're all in great debt to them because they're amazing. So that Larry's guy who popped up earlier, let's go have a little look what he's going for. I don't have the... There you go. So what's happened is he's popped up and it's showing me all the data that he's gone and sold for. So you can see he sold for 29. He sold at 29. Sold at 29. Sold at 28. Sold at 28. I can go look at the 1 week data. I can see they went for 29, 29, 29, 29, 29, 29. I can go and see what was he 3 months ago. Wow, he's absolutely banged in the last 3 months. What about 6 months ago? Whoa, he's absolutely banged in the last 6 months. What was he going this time last year? So you can use this, especially for my traders out there, for data. Now, you've also, on top of that, got 3 different colours. You've got blue, purple and red. So blue is like when I said earlier, you know how SoRare min lists every card? That's what they got bidded on. Purple is when I go and list the card, like I showed you here. If I was going to buy that, it'd pop up as a purple data right there. And red is when I get someone on a trade offer. So whenever you buy a player, or whenever you sell a player, it all gets documented on here, even if it's a trade offer, which is really, really nice because it really helps you with the trading. Now, the one massive piece of advice I would say is ignore the bids, because bids are way overpriced. I would compare this in FIFA to someone buying someone fresh. You know, if someone was to go and buy someone fresh, they'd overpay. And then you'd go, well, I'm not going to go and follow his price because that guy might go and buy someone fresh at 30k on FIFA when he's normally 25k. It's kind of the same with bids, but because of the affiliate, basically. So I'd always ignore this data because this data is always inflated and not actually the going rate of the player. As I say, they're not expensive and so rare because they're fresh. It's just an equivalent of why people overpay for something on FIFA, but you wouldn't use that price. It's likewise here. People overpay for the cards on bid because they get affiliate rewards, but they don't on the buy now. So when looking at cards, you do want to ignore that. So now to describe what on earth these different cards are. Now the observant with you will see that maybe there's been some yellow cards. There's some red cards. I can get just the red card popping up. There are blue cards. And there are black cards. There are loads and loads and loads of different cards. But what do these cards mean? Oh, they mean a lot. They mean a lot. So, if we're looking at the likes of Haaland here, which may I say is a very expensive player, it's not the going rate. What a, yellow card is, which they call limited, is it as a 1 of 1,000 card. So, with the market, there is only a limited amount of each player every year. It is the equivalent of EA only ever releasing 100 Messis on the market. And then what happens is that is the cheapest version of Messi. Now with this cheap version of Messi, you can play in the gold tournament where you're only allowed to use gold cards. But the rewards are only gold rewards. So for example, the average gold card tournament, aka limited tournament team, will cost you about £300 to £500 on SoRare. You'll load £300 to £500 to play in the gold card tournament. This will get you rewards coming in on average about £10 to £30 every week. In terms of game weeks, there's two game weeks every week, so it's almost like a weekend league and a mid-weekend league, which you both get rewarded for. So your average team for that and these quality of cards, let's say your average team's out of £300 to £500. Obviously, you're not going to be buying someone like Haaland. He's very, very expensive. So that is your yellow quality. There is 1,000. They're the cheapest cards on the game, and they let you play in the cheapest tournament. Now, if you want to play in a more expensive tournament, so imagine again, you've got Weekend League where you're only allowed to use gold cards, the cheapest version. Then you've got Weekend League where you're only allowed to use inform cards. These are the more expensive cards. You see that we've really scaled the price up here. This is again, you're playing Weekend League, you're only allowed to use inform cards, and you get rewarded informs. As a result, the teams are looking to cost at minimum about £3,000, especially if you're having any sort of competition. But your reward average is going to come in at about £50 to £100 on some of the lower ones, lower tier rewards. So you've got your gold tournament where you're paying £300 to £500 to enter to buy a team. Now, the thing with these teams, you can use them week after week after week. One comparison where it's not like FIFA, you're not having to restart and start every year. You get to keep these cards going into the next year, and the next year, and the next year, and the next year, and you get to play them over and over and over again, presuming that the site doesn't crash and burn for one of 100,000 reasons. But yeah, so back to these. So these are you're buying the inform cards. Again, you can't buy an inform team for less than £2,000 to £3,000, which is why the majority of people use gold cards. So again, these are called rares. You'd enter with a rare team, cost £2,000 to £3,000, but you'd be potentially getting back £50 to £100 each week, depending how they perform. On top of that, if you hit something called a threshold, which is a minimum score, they'll actually just give you some money rather than giving a card. So it's almost like if you're playing Weekend League and rather than giving you an inform, they just went and gave you 30k. Not quite as good as an inform, but it's just guaranteed money for hitting so many points. I mean, they literally do that in FIFA. So that's not even it done. So you've got the gold tournament, the inform tournament. Now what we've got is the team of the season tournament. This is a tournament you can only enter using team of the season cards. And once again, they've gone up 4x. So teams for this will generally cost you about, I'll be honest with you, the teams are not as scaled up as much as the gold, mainly because they don't have a threshold, but the top tier players are more expensive. For these teams, I'll be honest, I don't fully understand, but it's very unachievable for the average. I think you're generally looking at about 50 grand for a team like this. But then the rewards are coming in at about 500 to 1 grand. Again, this isn't something I've researched so much because I am very much out my depth when talking about 50 grand. But for comparison, you're going to enter a team of the seasons and you're going to win nothing but team of the seasons. Very expensive to enter, very expensive rewards. The cards only exist 1 of 10, so it's almost like EA issue they only release 10 team of seasons of each player. And now we get underway with what is the most disgusting tournament ever, which is unique. Now, what there are actually tournaments that mix up and they say, all right, use one, let's call this an icon, 1 icon, 2 team of seasons, 2 informs. So there are tournaments where you can use, multiple different ones, but there are also tournaments where you, just use uniques. And again, if I was out my depth with the last one, I am more than out my depths here. This is a tournament where people are generally spending 100, 200, 300 grand to play in it, but they're being rewarded, cards worth anywhere from 1 to, I don't know, there's been some disgusting, like 100 to 300 grand if you're extremely lucky. So you can see, this is the big boys, the big rollers tournament. Again, not something that's going to interest you, but it's out there, and it's nice to look at this guy. Again, this guy paid $500,000 for this card, like real life money, $500,000. There you go, 600 euros. $500,000 I think it was at the time. With Ethereum, I think it might be down a little bit at the moment. So what you may have got from this is it's quite pay to win. Now it is to an extent. If you've got money, you buy the best players, but the best players don't always perform. Now, how the actual, game works, I don't think I've actually explained it yet, is how you play is it's fantasy football. So if I go and buy Haaland, and Haaland has an absolute stinker on the weekend, Haaland isn't going to get any points, he's going to get 20, 30 points. But what it is it's all relation to the league you're playing in. So Luis Diaz, the guy who's recently signed for Liverpool, was absolutely killing it in the Liga NOS. And I can go and show you his scores right now. Luis Diaz, I wouldn't say I've got the, yeah. So he was absolutely killing it in the Liga NOS. and as a result, he became very, very, very expensive. But you would go, well, Luis Diaz isn't as good as Haaland. Or he isn't, I mean, again, it was nowhere near Haaland, but he isn't as good as these players. Well, it's irrelevant how good they are. It's how good are they performing in retrospect of their league. So it's like, Ronaldo at the moment isn't playing very well. But if you were to go and put Ronaldo in the Championship, he'd be banging it. And that is the relevance of the cards. So someone like Luis Diaz, we can see right here, look, 99. I think he got like 2 goals and an assist. He was pulling in some crazy, crazy numbers. And as a result, he became expensive. Now, if you look at it, you'd go, Luis Diaz is it would have been about 1/3 the price of Haaland. But actually, in terms of putting scores on the doors, these are Luis Diaz scores. I mean, Haaland's been injured in all fairness. Let's go and grab, I don't know, who'd be expensive. But not too good. Expensive and not too good. We'll grab Haaland. I think there's probably something to look at with Haaland. Scores on the doors. Scores on the doors were again very good for Haaland, but you can see for a period it only would have been as good as Diaz's. Getting 90s, 80s, and so on. So it's not fully pay to win because I mean I can even go and show you the best performing players and how much they were last week. So they aren't necessarily always the most expensive players. For example, we look right here at Papi Djibouti, and this guy last week was the 2nd highest performing defender. But let's go and see how much he is. 63 euros. Now, 63 euros is expensive, but bear in mind he was the 2nd best performing defender, and I could have, let's say, gone out and bought, who's super expensive? Someone like Timber. Timber's very, very expensive. Timber is 1.4 grand. What was his score last week? His score last week was 62. But this guy was 62 euros, and he pulled in a 97. And I'm sure you could find someone who's even cheaper who pulled in a really, really good score. Because I say, Timber might not have been on his form, but Papi Djibouti would have been on his form. Likewise with midfielders. Let's go and see if these are the big names who are midfielders. Who? It's not necessarily it's not necessarily pay to win because, alright, yes, this guy's 116, but if we go look at someone who's more expensive, we've got to look at Tony Cruz. And Tony Cruz, a whale or someone who had a lot more money, would have bought a Tony Cruz at 1.5 grand. And he performed nowhere near as good as Gragic. So, again, although it's quote-unquote pay to win, it's also who has their game and who doesn't have their game. Because there are absolute gems as such that have their game and don't have the game. What about goalkeepers? Again, who? You've got some of the bigger names, I'm sure, last week, who weren't pulling in numbers. But you've got this guy right here, who's gone and pulled in a great number. Now, goalkeepers are very, very expensive, no matter who you go for. Because, once again, like I said earlier, there's a lack of goalkeepers that have first-team football. There must be a maximum for like 70, 80 across maybe it's close to about 100, 150. But if you think about defenders, there's 4 defenders for every team. There's 4 midfielders that start for every team. There's 2 to 3 attackers every team. Goalkeepers, 1. So as a result, goalkeepers are madly expensive. And when I say it costs about £300 to £500 to build a team, we're talking about 100 to 150 just on the goalkeeper. The midfielders and forwards are a little bit cheaper. About forwards, all right, Messi had a great game. Milik's quite a big name, but then it comes to someone like this guy, and he was only 4 score off your Messi. All right, he was very expensive, but just last week, before he actually had his good game, he was only 100. What happens is when they pull in these big scores, they go up in price. Another thing I guess we'll move on to in the market. You could generally treat every single one of these cards like a one-to-watch card on FIFA. You get injured, you're going to go down because you're not going to bring in scores. You're going to go down in price, which is one of the reasons why, again, I have to say it's not like FIFA. FIFA, yes, you lose coins, but you don't go and lose 200 quid because a player gets injured. You've got someone's on form. They're going to be bringing in good scores. They're going to go up in price. This guy's a perfect example. Now, it's another example because the Peruvian league has only just started again. So he's actually up a combination of great form and their league's just started. So because their league's just started, he's gone from not playing and not getting any scores. So I think it started back up. Yeah, so it wasn't... Yeah, they weren't playing. If you can see at the bottom there, it is... if I just scroll along a little bit here, you can see that it's got week 214 to 242, which means he wasn't playing for 30 game weeks because the Peruvian league would have ended. Because he would have ended and now he's back playing again, he's gone up in price. If I can show you like the 3 months. There you go. See, the closer we're getting to the Peruvian league restarting, the more he's going up. And I presume that was then probably coming back last time. So it's a combination of him playing well. So players playing well is going to rise their price. players playing easy teams going to rise their price. If this is done for fantasy football, and let's say, I don't know, the equivalent of Barcelona's playing, I don't know, some rubbish at Candice, well then they're going to have, or Cadiz, they're going to have a very high chance of getting a good score, which means the Barcelona player is going to go up. So if top of the league's playing bottom of the league, what are the odds that top of the league are going to get good scores? Quite high, so they're going to go up in price. So they go up in price if they're playing a bad team. They're up in price if the player in general is on good form. They're up in price if, let's say for a goalkeeper, like I said, goalkeepers are very expensive, but if the main goalkeeper gets injured, then the second goalkeeper is going to come in play. He's going to go up in price. If you're, I don't know, for example, maybe Kulevetsky when he was back playing for Juventus and Chiesa is recently done his ACL, and that's going to rise his price. So, again, it's a bit like one-to-watches. When they're on form, they're up in price. When they're down in form, they're down in price. If they're likely to get an inform from a game, they're up in price. There are no informs in this as such, but the inform is you having a good score to pitch towards the team as such. And likewise, you know, you're going to crash if you are that main keeper that gets injured or COVID or something, and you're going to drop. If you are on great form and then just flop out of nowhere, then you're going to drop. If you're a main starter and you get dropped, for example, I've had strikers in the past, their main striker going into a great matchup, they're up, they didn't even start. God knows. But that's another read of the market and how it's comparable to FIFA as such. So I think that is there to wrap it up. As I say, it is a fantasy football game, but you have to buy every player. And again, to trade, you probably load about 50 to 100. I'm going to be doing a Road to Glory very soon where I start with £10, just so then, no matter what you're loading up, it is relatable. Once again, I would say is that you have to be 18 to play this. Obviously, you probably understand why. You know, there's risk with crypto. There's a lot of risk with money in this. So any money you put on could crash. It's the equivalent of, let's say I load up 1,000 FIFA points that I could theoretically withdraw. But then I've loaded up £1,000 worth of FIFA points and boom, EA just went bust. Well, now I'm not going to get my money back. So you just got to understand there are risks in it. You know, it does look like great fun. And as I say, the last thing I want to do is advertise it like FIFA, and then kids think, oh, it's amazing. They go put money on, and you got to understand it's not really a kid's game. You know, is more like gambling more than it is maybe FIFA as such. As ironic as there is gambling in FIFA, but that hopefully this video has helped you come to terms with some of the concepts. Again, anything you don't understand, do just head over to my stream. I'm more than happy to explain it. But thank you very much for watching. I'll see you guys tomorrow with a brand new video.